guys. Trying out with this headset. I think it'll be a little better quality. Um, okay. So I have done a lot of digging. I'm sure. I don't know if you guys watched my other video on this that I put out earlier, saying that she's exposed that she's had this agenda with the internet for since 2014. It goes even deeper than that. Um, so just on this woman specifically, Theresa May. I did a lot of digging after I made that video. Theresa May took office, I believe it was 2005. It was in a low-level position, a shadow. They call it like a shadow, whatever. Um, and there wasn't much on her up until 2009, 2010. She was starting to lean towards this way. Okay. But here we go. October 2nd, 2011. Home Secretary, she was secretary at the time, Theresa May wants human rights axed. The Home Secretary has called for the Human Rights Act to be scrapped less than a fortnight after Lib Dem leader Nick Clegg said it was here to stay. The act enshrines the European Convention on Human Rights into UK law, but Theresa May told the Telegraph on Sunday she personally would like to see it go because of the problems it's caused for the Home Office. You can keep reading. She basically goes on to, obviously we've seen it in some foreign criminals. This is the stage. This is when this agenda was first started being pushed by her. Now, I even went even further with this, and this agenda was being pushed even before she started with this by previous prime minister. So to me, it seems like she's an elitist. She's on the elitist agenda, and she's basically their, elitist speaking mouth, puppet. So let's keep going. Theresa May, June 7th, 2011. Theresa May, we will not make the same mistakes on terror. Home Secretary Theresa May has launched the revised anti-terror prevent strategy, promising tighter controls on anti-terror funds, targeting of nonviolent extremism. So targeting of nonviolent extremism. Now, you know what I find very interesting is around this time, 2011, is exactly when the YouTube truther community really started kicking right off. I almost swore there because this stuff really does get me pretty worked up, but I'm going to try not to do that for this video. I really don't like swearing. I don't usually let myself get that worked up. Not going to waste time either, though. So, that is what this is all about. This is all about the truth movement. The truth movement. And what I find even more interesting than just it being about the truth movement is that the flat earth movement is picking up so much right now that I think they're willing to do whatever they can to keep that genie in the bottle. And even if it means staging terror events to then enact laws to strip Brits and then ultimately the rest of the world of their internet rights to keep that under wraps. I very, very strongly am leaning that way. The more I've dug and the more I've thought about it, I wish I said that in the video earlier. So I wanted to make a point of putting that in there this time because I truthfully believe this has a lot to do with how much momentum the flat earth movement is picking up right now. Okay, so as we said, 2011, that's when she starts talking about human rights, and that's when she starts talking about internet censorship. Goes right down here. Where is it? I'm going to find it. Hold on one second. I went through so much, it's hard to find. I think this is the wrong one. Okay, guys, sorry. So here we go. Continuing, Theresa May responds to London Bridge. So I tracked that one down. Sorry, I've been going through so many pages that it gets kind of jumbled up after a while. Um, so here, back in 2011, as you can see, these measures introduced by the coalition to place restrictions on people who are suspected of being terrorists or who have not been convicted of an offense. Again, that can be very vague from exactly what she was saying. Um, Duncan Smith said one of the things that I was concerned about in coalition government, I know Theresa May was when she was Home Secretary, was the coalition of the TPIM and order that we brought in, which gives those powers, was watered down, and I think it was weakened too much. The former independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, Lord Charlie Barreau, predicted that the first item on the agenda in any review would be reintroduction, possibly under a new name, of control orders, which were replaced by less stringent TPIMs in 2011. So that goes back to 2011. The preface of all of this, which I'm going to get to this in a minute. I'm actually very confused on why this was done here. This is another thing kind of pointing towards knowing about the war on terror before it happens with 9/11, because there was no terror attack in 2000 or even in the vicinity of 2000 for Britain. So I don't understand why they all of a sudden did like an emergency enactment of a terrorism bill that was stripping people of their freedoms, much like the Patriot Act back in 2000 in Britain. I'm going to get to that, so you guys hang tight, please. The Investigatory Powers Act of 2016, or Snooper's Charter, that was Theresa May's baby right there. It was first introduced in 2014. There was a lot of snapback from citizens and from other politicians to the point that it was first denied with how stringent she had it. So just to recap here, from 2011, she's been pushing for human rights to be axed. She's been pushing to censor and control the internet. She survived many scandals also. She was involved in it was a Czech scandal regarding the border services for the UK, and it was a pretty significant amount of money, and a lot of people called for her to resign. Somehow she made it through that. She also made it through a controversy where it was pointed she was under scrutiny for a conflict of interest in regards to 200 million pounds for a settlement. So she survived a few different scandals where she's been, had a lot of calling for her to resign. So that's why I say I think she's been pushed along. She's an elitist puppet. She's no good. So here we go. Internet surveillance will still save lives, says Theresa May. Lives will be saved by new internet powers, allowing security services and police to snoop on emails, webs, visits, and social networking sites. So this is back in 2012. So that goes to show you. She's been pushing for this for a very long time. And it goes, to the point of, let me see here. Sorry, I put down a lot of notes on some stuff that I just couldn't fit in with the website. So I want to make sure I give you guys all the information I got. She started catching a lot of momentum. Oh no, it's very funny, as I was saying earlier about the truther channels were starting to build a lot of momentum during this time. There's a lot of truth that was coming out, and I'm sure they were not liking that whatsoever. So during that time, they're having all this truth come out, and then all of a sudden she's coming out in the news. There's articles saying that the internet is changing people's brains and changing their minds, and they're being brainwashed and blah 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 blah. Which I'm going to show you. It's actually very strange that she was doing all this during this time frame, and I'm going to explain why in a minute. So she was always elected, even though it appears by polling that she wasn't really the popular vote a lot in most of her career. Somehow, either manipulation or whatever else, maybe it's poll manipulation, ballot manipulation. She's always coming out on top because she's going to push that agenda that they want. 2013, there's a correlation with this. So she was pushing all this, okay? And there wasn't much going on really in the UK as far as terrorism. And then all of a sudden in 2013, there was hate preachers and recruiters starting to pop up after she's already been talking about this for years and years and years, trying to hammer it home. So this is what I want you guys to understand here. Then you start having hate preachers and recruiters popping up. And then there's a murder of a British soldier in 2010. As a result of that, that's when she's using that as an excuse to push this agenda, which that murder, it wasn't in London, that murder. That was out of the country, but she was still using that agenda, saying that the person had immigrated over to Kenya and become affiliated with these jihadists or something. I don't know. He was he was a Kenyan national, but I guess he had moved to the UK or something like that for a little while, and then he had left and gotten radicalized supposedly. So Theresa May in 2014, she pushes for a bill draft, investigatory power bill, which hits Parliament in November 2015. That bill included equipment interference, interception, and communication data, disabling internet connections, and collecting internet communication records, including the browser history. So that's what that included. Let's see here. Oh, and they're basically, one of the big things that they needed to be able to do was hack into the phones, and the providers would have been required to comply with that request. So at any time the government says we want to hack into this phone, the provider would have to make that happen for them. I'm sure you get, there was a lot of fighting, and it ended up not passing. Then she reintroduced a different bill. So let me get to that. 2016, she begins pushing the Spy Powers Bill. Let's get over to that. This is, yeah, details UK websites to be stored for a year. So as I was saying, the website data, correspondence data, emails, et cetera, had to be stored for a year. That's what she was pushing with this bill. This was 4th of November 2015. But this bill, again, has been being pushed every year, several times a year, from 2011 on. But the original bill didn't work out. The Snoopers Law. Theresa May's Internet Spy Powers Bill, confusing. Police and security services will be able to see names of sites visited in the last year without a warrant under the draft investigatory powers bill. So they don't even need a warrant. Science and Technology Committee says its requirements are confusing and firms fear a rise in hacking because it's going to affect the cybersecurity. And that was February 1st, 2016. Now, I want you to keep making sure you're paying attention to these dates. Now, toys can be used as spying devices. This is around the same time, 9th of December, 2015. So basically, in this article, they're talking about how they would either drop off like a toy for a child or swap out a child's toy with something like this so it could spy on the parents. If you think they're only doing that for terrorists, you're very wrong. Tech giants raise concerns over UK draft surveillance bill, 8th of January 2016, because the bill went into enactment. Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Twitter, Yahoo expressed concerns for UK Parliament over the draft investigatory powers bill, the IP bill, which is the investigatory powers bill, spy investigatory powers bill. Went by many names, kind of like Obamacare did. The firms are worried about the phrasing and proposals on encryption, bulk collection of data, and openness. The submission joins another from Apple, which challenges the reach of the draft legislation. If passed, this was before it passed, I guess, IP bill would overhaul rules on how authorities access people's communications. It was going to create a major problem for them security-wise because of the way that they were saying nothing could be encrypted. There was a bunch of stipulations to that. This was 19th of May, 2017. This was just 4 days before Manchester. Theresa May is planning to introduce huge regulations on the way the internet works, allowing the government to decide what is said online. Particular focus has been drawn to end the manifesto, which makes it clear that the Tories want to introduce huge changes in the way the internet works. Some people say that it's not for government to regulate it when it comes to technology and the internet. It states, we disagree. So it's not enough for them to be spying on you like they are after the bills passed, that they had passed, where they can collect your data, they can see your messages, they can see your correspondence, they can see your browsing history without a warrant. Now they want to tell you what you can agree with because it's an attack on the truther community. They don't want you getting this information. They don't want you to know. They want you to go back to sleep. Go back to sleep, little sheep, and go fall in line. That's all they want. They want you to listen to everything they say. Now, just several days after she was pushing that, how amazing is it that Manchester happened to happen? How the Manchester terror plot could help Theresa May. The message from Ariana Grande's concert is that we all live in a soft security spot. The conservatives may be able to exploit this, even if they shouldn't. Goes into detail, speaking about her internet censorship and internet regulations she wants to enact and how this can be the preface for it. Theresa May, in the spirit of Manchester, in the spirit of Britain, thumping home about that internet censorship and thumping home about that internet control that she's been pushing for almost a decade. After London attack, Prime Minister says enough is enough. You guys already know what's going on there. Still pushing that internet control. Now she's in overdrive. And unfortunately, she is, I believe, now your Prime Minister again. And she vowed that if she got it, that she would make this happen. The only way that's going to stop is if you guys tell her, if she continues going through with this, you guys have to have an uprising at that point. Delayed is Theresa May's next move on Brexit questions. Now, I'm bringing up Brexit here for a very good reason. Because Brexit and Theresa May and her plans for the internet are all related. Because in order to get outside of the EU, if she gets out of the EU, then her internet censorship can work. But as long as she's in the EU, there's the net neutrality, which stipulates that she can't do what she wants to do. It already raised a bunch of flags and questions about the prior bill. That's why she's pushing to get out of Brexit. So what I did was I correlated the dates. I went through and cause I'm very curious as to certain times of some of this stuff happening. So I went through and I checked for all the terror attacks that happened regarding the UK. 1994, there was a London Israeli embassy attack, but that wasn't really an attack on Britain. That was on Israel. And then there's nothing. There's nothing from 1995 to 2005 when the London bombs went off. And the subways and stuff. So we got the London bombs. 2005, prior to that we have the Israeli embassy bombing. So there wasn't a terror attack for 10 years. So then what made them introduce this new terrorism, stricter terrorism act? It wasn't 9/11 because 9/11 hadn't happened yet. 9/11 doesn't happen for another year. That's what makes me think that they know exactly what was going to happen on 9/11 before it happened. Because we've seen this happen many times where they get ready ahead of time and get all their ducks in a row. Because the wording and everything that this does seems very much like the SAFE Act. Or not the SAFE Act, I'm sorry. The Patriot Act. My bad. I'm tired. I've been looking at a lot of stuff today. Excuse me. So, why was this introduced? Why was this enacted at this time frame when you hadn't had a terror attack on London in 10 years? Then the next attack was the 1994 Israeli embassy bombing in London. That was an attack on Israel, though. There's the London bombings. Then you have a Glasgow airport attack, but that was in Scotland. That wasn't in, like, England per se, or Britain. So the next attack just happened to be about a year and a half after Theresa May started pushing for human rights to be axed, for the internet to be axed. It all correlates. See, that's what I found here, is that if you look at the dates, it all ends up making sense. So here, 22nd of May, 2013, we've got a soldier who was, they were actually, and this is what it's going to really kind of get you guys going a little bit here with Manchester, but it was May 22nd, 2013. Do you know what else happened on May 22nd? May 22nd, 2017. So 4 years later, on the same exact day, there's a suicide bombing. But take a look at this. So Rigby was an off-duty and walking alone Wellington Street when he was attacked. He was a soldier. Adeblaho or whatever ran him down with a car. then used knives and a cleaver to stab and hack him to death. The men dragged Rigby's body into the road and remained on the scene until police arrived. They told passers-by they had killed a soldier to avenge the killing of the Muslims by British armed forces. Unarmed police arrived at the scene 9 minutes later after an emergency call. After 5 minutes, the assailants, armed with a cleaver and brandishing a gun, charged at the police officer who fired shots that wounded them both. They were apprehended and taken to separate hospitals. So this ran him down with a car and used knives. That sounds very familiar. June 3rd, 2017. London bombings. And the Israeli bombing, which wasn't really, there's not a lot of terrorist attacks on British soil. So why has Theresa May been pushing all this time when, truthfully, in what, 30 years, you had, I wouldn't even really call this Britain. So you had 3 attacks, not even, because that was an Israel attack. 2 attacks in 30 years. This goes back to the 70s. So in actually over 45 years, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attacks, okay, in 45 years. And 3 of which were in the last 4 years. This one doesn't count, so you got 6. So that means you tripled your rate pretty much of terrorist attacks when it conveniently you're pushing an internet censorship and control bill to strip people of their rights to freedom of speech and information. Well, Theresa May, I think it's pretty obvious what your true motives are here, and I call you on your shit. Crawl back in your hole and resign. Stop trying to take the freedoms of my friends over in Britain. Guys, please share this information. Get this out. It needs to be seen. I mean, literally, she started thumping her drums against the internet. Then about a year and a half later, you mysteriously have a it seems like Patsy situation. I'm gonna have to look into this. I don't remember this attack. Went as far as decapitation. It just, look at this. And then these 2 attacks here give her the momentum she needs to push this bill through. Doesn't matter what is going on. It's not the internet that is making these people extremists. They'll go to the mosques, they'll go to the temples, they'll go to the parties, they'll go to the gathering spots. It's not